Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to Measures of Green Urbanism. We are starting today with the topic of open space, and this is the lecture 16 of week 4. So we will be starting with the definition of public space and the importance of public space in sustainable urban space. So public space is all space that is publicly owned and accessible and enjoyable by all without any fee or without profit as a motive behind use. Public space is a key element of individual as well as social well-being. Public space can be categorized into 3 categories, which is street or sidewalks, footpaths, cycling lanes, squares. The second category being open public space, which includes parks, gardens, playgrounds, waterfront areas such as public beaches, and the third is public facilities, which is public markets or other such space which is available and accessible to all the citizens. So public space, availability of public space and quality of public space has a positive impact on the economy, environment, safety, health, integration and connectivity in any urban area. And the quality of public space, it helps to define the cultural, social and potential functions of a sustainable city. The quality of public space also helps in creation and maintaining of the cultural identity of an area. So if we look into the uses and the impacts of public space across multiple domains, we find that availability of public space, it improves accessibility, it improves environmental quality, it provides means of building social cohesion, and by being available and accessible to different user groups, it also creates inclusion. It helps build up the local economy by making urban space more attractive and more inviting to different user groups. It also nurtures and provides means of creation of a sense of community. So when we are talking about public space, we are talking about space which helps in making an area more walkable. It provides ease of access for pedestrians, for bicyclists. It is usually present as a complementary role with the existing public transit services. It reduces the need for cars and it enhances connection between different parts of the city. And it also has significant impact in the local microclimate, particularly presence of vegetation, and it also has a cooling impact. So if we move on to the impact of public space and how it is related to different sustainable development goals, then we know that access to open space is also included as part of sustainable development goal number 11, but different aspects related to public spaces also related to other 4 sustainable development goals, within which sustainable development goal number 3, number 5, number 8 and number 13 are included, and that is in relation to access and inclusivity particularly for different age groups, for different genders, the impact in relation to climate, as well as to promote a more productive, sustainable and inclusive growth. So, Sustainable Development Goal number 11.7, the target number 11.7 is talking about providing universal access to safe, inclusive and accessible green and public spaces for different user group, particularly considered to be vulnerable user groups such as women and children, elderly and persons with disabilities. The three indicators that are included in here, first look into the first indicator of that, it looks into the overall average share of public open space with respect to the built up area of the city for different typologies of public open space based on size and coverage. For example, it is looking into the distribution and overall percentage of area of public open space, such as the neighborhood, local pocket open space, the neighborhood level public open space, district level public open space, regional level open space and national and metropolitan level public open space. So, if we later we will be discussing the different categories of public open space as included in the URDPFI guidelines of India, we find that there is a direct relation between this way of categorizing different types of public open space with respect to the different levels of or different degree of city growth. The next three indicators are with respect to access to green open space, particularly for persons with disabilities. Next, for use of open space by different genders, and lastly by different age groups. So, when we are talking about the indicators to assess the access to green open space or the availability to green open space or public space or open space in general, then this assessment can be done at 2 levels or at 3 levels. This assessment can be done at the overall national level or at a regional level, when we will be looking into the availability and the network of such public open spaces. And when we will be talking about at the meso level, we can talk about the citywide availability, the citywide network of public open space as well as availability of public open space at a certain distance which is convenient to walk, convenient to cycle to and overall convenient to access. And lastly, the assessment can be done at the site level. So, the UN Habitat has also put into has created a list of indicators and sub-indicators to measure the site-specific neighborhood, site-specific public open space, and it has found out and identified 5 dimensions and overall 20 indicators and a number of sub-indicators to measure each dimension. So, when we are looking into the dimension of use and user, which is dealing with inclusive aspect of inclusivity of a public open space. So, there are 2 indicators. The first indicator is number and variety of users accessing the public space, and the second is number and variety of activities observed in the public space across space and time. So, the scale of measurement is at site level or at a certain radius from the particular site of public open space. This particular radius is dependent on a convenient accessible distance. So, usually convenient accessible distance has been found to be a 5 minutes walking distance, which can be taken as 400 meters in urban areas. This particular distance can increase in case of rural areas and this distance can also be changed a little bit based on the age of the user. So usually for children who are has not yet reached adolescence, so for those children this distance is slightly less. We find that across the world different countries use different distance to measure this ease of access. So in here there are few indicators or few sub indicators to measure the use and user or inclusivity aspect of a public open space, some of which are mandatory. For example, for number and variety of users accessing public open space, the mandatory sub indicator is number of users during day and variety of users in the space with respect to age, gender, ability and ethnicity. For the second indicator, we have 6 sub indicators, all are mandatory. The first one is the amount of mixed use in building frontage, which is at a certain distance from the site. The second one is presence of vacant unit in building frontage. The third one is presence of different inclusive activities in public space for children, for elderly, so on and so forth. The fourth one is presence of non-designed temporary activities which is organized by the local government for the community. The fifth one is presence of restriction rules for specific activities such as no play, no biking areas. The seventh one is with respect to presence of social interactions. And the last one is with respect to presence of formal and informal economic activities such as food and other kiosks and shops at a certain distance or within a certain distance from the site. So this is in regards to the overall activities that is present or allowed within that particular site and the overall number and type of user. For the second dimension of accessibility, there are 4 indicators. The first indicator is accessibility and presence of qualitative and inclusive facilities for private vehicles. The second one is for bike. The third one is for pedestrians and the fourth one is for public transportation. So looking into the different modes of accessibility, there are specific indicators, specific sub indicators. Some of the sub indicators are mandatory. So the first one being presence of area reserved for private vehicle movement and presence of inclusive and free parking area for private vehicles. The another mandatory sub indicator is presence of area reserved for bike movement as well as presence of area reserved for pedestrian movement and presence of pedestrian crossings. Similarly, we have presence of ramps for wheelchair with correct design and inclination. We also have presence the overall perception of accessibility, the presence of bylaws for restrictive access and rules, and presence of public transport. So they are all in regards to availability of that will allow for ease of access for people using different means of or modes of transportation. From here on, we move on to the third dimension of amenities and furniture. So within amenities and furniture, we find that we are looking into the quality of illumination, we are looking into the quality of recreational structures which is helpful in aiding play for children at least, and we are looking into the quality of seating, the availability and quality of waste bins, the availability and quality of bike racks, and availability and quality of signage and emergency items, and finally the availability and quality of water and toilet facilities, amongst which Some are mandatory for assessment, such as presence of natural lighting, presence of artificial lighting, presence of inclusive recreational structures for outdoor activities, amount of primary or secondary seating with regards to bench, mobile chairs, stairs, etc., and amount of waste bins, amount of bike racks, and amount of signage present within the facility, as well as presence of drainage system. So, these indicators and sub-indicators are trying to assess the quality of the public open space with regards to different amenities that it has. Coming down to the fourth dimension of comfort and safety, we have 4 indicators and 20 sub-indicators. The 4 indicators include perception of safety and level of security of the public space, and the mandatory sub-indicators are presence of good social behavior and presence of natural surveillance, which is related to number of facades opening to the directly across that public space, and level of safety perceived by community during day and level of safety perceived by community during night. For the second indicator, we have quality of sensorial experience, and there the mandatory sub-indicator is presence of pleasant sounds such as natural sounds related to water body, music, no traffic noise, etc. The third indicator is overall comfort while using the public space through maintenance, design and ambient conditions. So, within the ambient conditions, the mandatory sub-indicator is presence of a waste management system and or absence of vandalism, and presence of good climate such as comfortable temperature for human activity. For the last indicator, which is presence of a public space identity determined by cultural background and users' enjoyment, we find that there are 2 mandatory sub-indicators, of which one is the positive reputation regarding the public space and neighborhood, and the other one is the amount of people who spends time in the space rather than passing through the public open space. From here on, we move on to the last dimension of green environment, which has 3 indicators and 13 sub-indicators. Within the green environment, we find that the 3 indicators are presence and quality of biodiversity, environmental and community resilience, and presence of energy efficient elements within the public space. The mandatory sub-indicator are ratio of green coverage, perception of air quality by the community, presence of environmental risks such as flooding, erosion, soil degradation, and presence of recyclable waste bins within the site. So, these are site specific assessment that has to be managed through this given indicators and sub-indicators. If we look into the overall quality of open space, particularly access to open space at a city level worldwide, we find that cities in Southeast Asia or South Asia are often faring relatively poorly as compared to other cities in the West. For example, in Europe, North America, as well as many cities in South America as well. We also see a trend which is a little alarming, because we see that across time the availability of public space per capita as well as the average share of green open space has declined across the world. And this might be a direct result of increasing urbanization, but however, this is not a sustainable trend. If we look into the overall access to open space with respect to Indian cities, we find that there are significant variations in Indian cities, because in here if we categorize the access to green open space at metropolitan city level or at different city levels separately, we might get a different picture, because at the metropolitan city level the availability of green space is usually found to be comparatively less than with regards to say other tier 1 cities. So, in here as per our URDPFI guidelines, it is clearly mentioned that the overall share of green open space and area of green open space, how it should be increased with respect to the number of population that it caters to. For example, in a housing area park where the population served is 5,000, the area of green open space should at least be 0.5 hectares. Whereas in a neighborhood park which is going to serve 15,000 people, at least 1 hectare of green open space should be provided, and this is with regards to organized green open space. And similarly, as the number of people being served increases, the overall area of green open space or area of organized green open space should also increase. We have guidelines in with regards to the percentage of green open space for different land uses at site level, such as for residential or for commercial use, there should be at least 0.3 to 0.4 hectare of green open space per 1000 person. That leads to 4 square meter of space per capita. 3 square meter of 4 square meter of space per capita, and no recreational space should be lesser than 450 square meter, and the length of the green open space should not be such that it becomes a very longitudinal green open space, so that the overall length of the space does not exceed 2.5 times the width of the space. And industrial zone should have at least 5% of its total site area under organized green open space, and the overall bulk of green open space should also not be less than 8,000 square meter in an industrial land use or industrial zone. So, for educational land use also, the percentage of green open space increases with respect to the overall first of all the level of educational institute or the category of educational institute. So, it increases from primary school till senior secondary school and further. And similarly, as because the number of students or the number of they also increase with respect to from primary school till about college. So, similarly, the availability and the overall area of under green open space should also increase. If we look into the standards followed by other countries with regards to access to green open space, we find that in Germany, in Italy, in Belgium as well as in natural England, the overall bulk of green open space as well as the per capita green open space are kept significantly higher than what we have included in India. So, in India, if we for residential commercial use, when we say that there should at least be 0.3 hectare to 0.4 hectare of green open space per 1000 people, that means it translates to 3 square meter or 4 square meter of green open space per capita, which is lesser than what has been mentioned in these countries. And Belgium has particularly mentioned that it actually opts for a significant proportion of green cover, green tree cover. And when we are talking about access to open space, first of all, we have to talk about the availability of open space and the accessibility or the ease of access to green open space. So, first we have to look into the distribution or the network of such green open space, looking at its location, the distance at which it is accessible, the coverage distance at which it is accessible to majority of the citizens, as well as the amount of security, and later we have to look into the overall attractiveness, the landscape, the quality and the different amenities present within the green open space. And it availability of green open space of at least 1 hectare, which is at a very easily accessible distance, they do help and they do affect significant domains from health to final productivity and attractiveness of a city, and thereby their inclusion is, and they are looking at and accessing the site specific quality of green open spaces, and their improvement therein are essential for making the city beautiful as well as making urban areas sustainable over time. When we are looking into the city level assessment of access to public open spaces, we find that UN has also created a toolkit, and the objectives of the citywide assessment or the assessment which will be happening at a city level or at a larger meso or macro level is related to different aspects of public space access. So, we have looked that while we are looking at the site specific assessment, we were looking into activities, we were looking into the user group and other specific aspects of amenities. So, in here at the city level assessment, we are looking into the overall network of public open space, the accessibility with respect to existing settlements. We are looking into the distribution, and we are trying to also look into the differences or the disparities that exist geographically as well as with respect to user groups. So, this level of assessment is necessary to formulate more inclusive policies targeted towards all user groups, including vulnerable user groups as well. So, this level of assessment as given is applicable for a particular administrative boundary and for a particular urban extent, and they can include specific recommendations for certain pilot areas, but largely it will be used at the level of city and not for a very site specific assessment. So, when we are looking into the public space assessment at a city level, we are looking into the spatial distribution, we are looking into the overall connectivity and the overall availability of the existing street network with respect to the existing public space network. We are also looking into the accessibility aspect, which is how easily can people access these public open spaces, and this is more related to the isochronic accessibility aspect, which we will be discussing later on. So, in here people are looking at how easily can people access these public open spaces at a particular, within a particular travel time. And we also are looking into the quantity of public space per capita or per citizen, and the division of public space, which is public open space or green open space per capita as well. So, these are the overall dimensions, and so while assessment is being done, it is also looking into this public space accessibility with respect to environment, the impact it will have on diversity, the impact it will have on mobility, or the implications and linkages it has with mobility and transport, whether the public open spaces are available to all user groups and are designed as per universal design, whether they are providing adequate access to public facilities in a similar way which we have seen in case of site specific assessment. So, what is happening at a city level assessment, whether it is following the norms of safety and security, and how signages and advertisements are included within the public open space to make it more attractive, and how the public open spaces are providing space for cultural identity, expression of one's cultural identity, to promote inclusivity as well as to promote tourism and conservation of heritage. So, this is one example of the public space assessment at a city level. So, done in Nairobi, Kenya, where we can see the total area within Nairobi's administrative boundary that was considered for the assessment. The number of data points that was collected, it is represented in this particular map, and the number of data collectors who were used to conduct this survey and for how long this survey continued. So, usually at a city level assessment, this is the timeline and the resource needed to do this scale of an assessment. At a site specific assessment, a minimum time of 7 days is necessary, and the number of collectors will also be considerably less. So, this is giving us a direct comparison between what we are trying to do with respect to a city level assessment, where we are looking at quantity, we are looking at network, we are looking at distribution, vis-a-vis what we are trying to do when we are going for a site specific assessment, where we are looking at quality with respect to different user groups, access to amenities and level of comfort, safety, ease of access, etc. So, with this, our discussion on access to open space, including public open space, green open space, comes to an end, and we will move on to a newer topic in the next lecture. Thank you for your attention.